Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. And man, we have what I call in the business a redo today, which is going to be a special treat for everybody listening, because a couple weeks ago I had Hans on, and for the first time, I don't know, in 300 episodes, I lost the recording. And then it happened a second time that day when I was on with Senator Jesse Keel. I lost the recording again. So we're doing a redo, and you guys are going to be in for a special treat. But before we go into that, I just want to thank everybody that listens, watches, and reads Must Read Alaska. Our iTunes or our podcast is top 200 in 4 different countries on any given week. We just won 2 major awards from the American Association of Communication and Marketing, which is very exciting. And we're on a hot streak here in Must Read Alaska land. So if you tune in and listen, we want to thank you. If you want to help keep the lights on at Must Read Alaska, this is Suzanne and I are doing pro bono news work. We're not funded by some nonprofit huge conglomerate. We're just funded by everyday folks that care about conservative news, $5 at a time, $10 at a time. So if that's you and you want to help contribute, go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right-hand side there's a donate button, and we'd love for you to click on that. Our website's going nuts as well, in a good way. I don't know, we're having about 1.5 million page views every month. And we don't spend any ads to get folks directed to that. So that's just all organic folks that care about conservative news in Alaska. So we all know that folks are obsessed with Alaska, and we're appreciative of everybody that clicks on anything. So without further ado, welcome Hans to the Must Read Alaska Show. How you doing, Hans?
I'm doing fantastic, John. Thanks for having me back.
I love it. So I'm gonna tee up for a second, because we want to hear about you, but I want folks to just understand that we do have a special treat here. So Hans and his wife, they've spoken all over the world, teaching folks how to better their lives and get financial freedom. They had their own forums and seminars that they did, and now Hans has his own book, a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But Hans, before we go into that, I'd love to just hear from you, kind of where'd you grow up, and what kind of got your brain started ticking early to think, man, I got to do something about my situation to better myself?
That's a great question. So I grew up in Hawaii on the Big Island in Kona, pretty small town. And as to the question, as far as what got me thinking, I grew up on the streets, and in a classic, very broken American home. I was raised by a single mom. I had more, father figures in and out of my life than I could count. At 8 years old, I had started my first business. I would come home from school and pick these little flowers off the trees, the plumeria flowers, and make these flowered necklaces and sell them to tourists. And go downtown to the local village and try to sell these things and make money. And that was for like school clothes and groceries. We were on welfare at the time. If I was lucky, I'd have a little bit of extra money when I was done to go play some video games at the Fun Factory or something like that. So at a really, really early age, I was fortunate that I learned the value of work and hard work, and learned the lesson that, hey, if I want something, I can go work for it. And I think that really was just a huge advantage, even though growing up the way that I did, to be able to learn that at such an early age, despite those circumstances. And I would say, as far as my memory goes, I was 12 years old the first time I thought, and this was when we would, every time I'd come home from school, wouldn't know where we were sleeping, if we were in the same house. Usually slept on a box spring mattress on a porch somewhere. And I remember one time at 12 years old just going, man, this sucks. and that was the first time I thought someday I want to be a millionaire. I don't want to have kids someday and have them basically have this same amount of instability and grow up the same way. And that was my earliest, memory of sort of having that dream and getting that vision.
So somewhere along the line, you thought to yourself, maybe I should write a book because maybe I'm tired of having this conversation 75 times a day. I'm going to put it in a book and just tell people to go get the book if they want to learn about it. So tell me about the process of going from, not authored a book to then creating a book and having it be pretty successful. The book is called True Wealth Formula: How to Master Money, Live Free, and Build a Legacy. So tell me about that process of what it looked like for you to write a book.
It's funny you say that. If you want to solve the problem of having to repeat things to people, and you think the answer is to write a book, and it'll be easier to write a book, probably not. But no, you're right. So when I was young in Hawaii, back to Hawaii, I met a guy who became my martial arts instructor when I was very young, because I was getting beat up every day after school and this and that. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And he became this kind of really pivotal person in my life. I found out eventually, again, I was a teenager, and I eventually found out he was a multimillionaire. And, he would talk about the difference between the 99% and the 1%. And, that stuff really resonated with me. And so he was the first one to tell me, he said, the key to wealth is to get your money working for you instead of you working for your money. And, I was young and I thought, man, that sounds so great. I'm so fortunate. I know the answer and the key to wealth, and then later on, I got married and we had kids and we started businesses and we're doing all this stuff and we were making money and doing all this thing. But I was like, okay, what was that secret, that wealth secret again? And so I started to think about it and I thought, well, wait a second, I already know the answer. But then every time I would look at this thing that I learned from him, I thought, well, but how do I do it? And so it's funny because, when we get into these various, success niches and investing niches and wealth niches and this and that, we hear all these really cool things and they all sound great and they get us motivated and the principles are important. But for me, after years and years of doing this, and again, being, a CEO and a successful business owner and working with accountants, I would sit down with accountants and I would just get confused. I started to really put a lot of thought into this and I thought, what? There's got to be an actual formula to this. There's got to be a mathematical formula that if you, just like you add 2 + 2, you get 4, and if we're talking about money or, to keep it simple, we define wealth in the book much broader than money. But if we're just talking about the resources side of it, because most people struggle with debt, right. You and I were just talking right now, the latest stats on the credit card debt are bumping up against $1 trillion, the highest it's ever been. And so at the end of the day, what happens is people get overwhelmed with all those great sounding ideas and principles and all that messaging. And for me, this was over 2 decades ago. I started to put together some formulas, basically some mathematical equations that if you follow these formulas, you get a result no matter what, because you can't add 2 + 2 and not get 4. So it really comes down to that kind of level. So
nice. What's one thing you wish, you could go tell yourself you're 20, if you could go back in the future or back to the past 20 years, what's something you would tell yourself as like an aha moment of like, hey, remember to do this because this is going to be important?
You mean like practically speaking, like from a finance standpoint?
Yeah, or just as you're building your businesses or just, really with anything, your family, your business life. What's one thing you wish you could go back and tell your old self 20 years ago?
Yeah. Okay. So so we've always sort of and I talk about it in the book that, there's 3 things. If we're talking about true wealth, we're talking about relationships, health, and resources. There's other things as well, but most other things can fall into that category. And, I think there's different answers to that question. I could look back and be critical of things that or tell myself something different from the standpoint of health or relationships. overall, I think it's easy to be sort of it's easy to, in hindsight, being 2020, and to over critique ourselves sometimes. And I think, given the background, that the way that I grew up and whatnot, sorry about that. I look back and go, okay, I did, pretty okay there. Always room for improvement. But to be real specific on the finance side, there's a couple things that sometimes we get these ideas and we try all these things for many, many years, because I was a business owner and I felt more comfortable getting my hands on things. I didn't really dive into some of the passive strategies and the stuff that can be set up at a very early age that can compound on autopilot. And you and I were just talking about that before we got started. I've seen some of our clients right now that are just having incredible success, and it's almost set and forget. And so, yeah, if I could go back 20 years or 30 years to my younger self, I would have to say that there's some opportunity in the dividend space, where you can basically compound at very high yields, and manage the volatility. But when you get started young and you do it right, and you structure this stuff correctly, you can literally be, and mathematically, that's kind of what True Wealth Formula is all about, is to get the math set up right, so that you're hitting financial independence in 10 years. And a lot of guys I have hitting it a lot less than that. So that sounds crazy, but in all reality, that's oftentimes conservative, because the math works. And we have a situation in our country where people get the math inverted, and they get caught and trapped inside of a debt pyramid.
Yeah.
And so all that leverage and all that compound interest is working against them, instead of learning how to plant that seed early and really see it multiply. So
talk to me a little bit about, we were talking before about one of these particular success stories, a guy that you had on a week or so ago. Tell me a little bit about, I know you're releasing a video about him. So tell me a little bit about this gentleman who lives in the inner city in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so his name's Lenny, and so you're right. I interviewed him. We did a live, and he's been a client of ours for a while. He really has been applying for about 2 years. So I think he's been a client for maybe 2.5 years or so. He lives in the projects. He lives in slums. He and his wife, and they've tried all kinds of stuff, home-based businesses. They've done all kinds of things, over the years. And he got started with True Wealth Formula. He started applying the system and the ratios and this one particular strategy that we're talking about, right? And so I had him on, and he was sharing his story. Excuse me. And he went from, so he lives in the projects. He was telling, and I was blown away. I had no idea. First of all, and they're in somewhere, and he said the slums in New York. He said, he goes, there are people in our lobby shooting up. He goes, wow. I'm not kidding when I tell you we live, I'm not making this sound, nice. Anyway, he went from having 20, he got laid off during the pandemic. He had no work. He was unemployed, and he started this while he was unemployed. And he started with 20,000. That was his entire savings, and his account's over 100,000. And this was in 2 years. And he's got his numbers all dialed. He and his wife, they know exactly what their numbers are. And he said it on the thing. And we're going to be posting the video on my website here in a day or two, so people can actually see, because so many people are like, oh my God, I missed it. I got to get the replay. Oh, you wouldn't believe this. Facebook took the thing down. It shut the replay. As soon as we were done, we were talking for like an hour, and I call it automatic paychecks, because I'm like, wow, okay, this is really working. And then what I was telling you earlier is like, yeah, I kind of regret I haven't really pushed this so hard with our clients, because I'm sort of hesitant. I like them to try to figure out what what's best for them. Anyway, but yeah, we lost it. It went down. Everybody's like, oh my God, I missed it. But we're going to get it posted on the website. But it's super inspiring, so inspiring. I got so inspired by by him sharing his results. And anyway, it's just really exciting. He goes, yeah, no, we're not leaving the slums, man. Are you kidding? We're stacking. We're we're saving so much money right now. He goes, everything we're doing, we're just pouring it in, and we're just compounding. And then he goes, he's making $1,000 a month in passive income right now. in dividend checks, and every single month it's growing. Every single month he's getting a raise. So anyway, it's pretty cool. He's working full time. He gets overtime, and he just stacks it into his wealth account, and just super awesome. So
That's awesome. That sounds like he is a happy camper.
yeah.
So
He's
tell me
guy.
about, what do you think about the political, let's shift gears for a second. The political landscape here in the US. As a guy that's been very successful, owned and operated several successful businesses, tell me about what you think the climate is in the US, and if it's helpful to business men and women, or detrimental.
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably gonna open a can of worms here with me, but so I grew up, obviously I'm a Gen Xer, I'm that generation that is kind of like glossed over, and everybody kind of just like pretends doesn't exist anymore. And it kind of makes sense because we kind of known for raising our kids. We're just out on the streets, we didn't come home until it was late at night, and it was like we came home when it was like, oh, I'm hungry, kind of thing, and that type of thing. But so I definitely lean kind of quite a bit more towards, hey, figure it out, do it yourself, kind of thing. Like the very first page on the book says just flat out, no one will do for you what you're not willing to do for yourself. So I come from kind of that tough love kind of perspective. And as far as the political scene, I mean, it's been a disaster for years. And it's in my opinion, this is all my opinion, so I hope I don't step on any toes here, but I mean, it's just theater, and I look at our country right now today, and I look at the now, to be fair, we have a real problem that's been going on for quite a while, and that's cronyism, crony capitalism. And right now we have a lot of movements going on in the country, pushing more towards socialism, even far more extreme than that. But the problem is that we're not even really running. We don't have a correct capitalism, because capitalism is supposed to penalize failure, and it's supposed to flush failure and bad ideas out of the system. And that's what the whole bankruptcy process is for, so that new ideas can be birthed and new people and it can get started and get going. Crony capitalism, basically, and this all started with the too big to fails back in the global financial crisis. And a lot of people got burned by that because it was the slowest economic recovery ever. And you have these low interest rates and on and on and on. But it's really created a problem where you're bailing out people that are the insiders. And meanwhile, the social contract is being abused. And so I think there's a lot of reasons behind some of the stuff that's going on today. And at the end of the day, the answer is no one will do for you what you're not willing to do for yourself. If you're sitting waiting around for somebody else to come help you, and now you're
gonna be waiting a long time.
You're going to be waiting a long time. Now, this is different if you have family and neighbors. That's a different thing. Local communities, where we help each other and we're there for each other. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about getting caught up in some of this national messaging and all this stuff where you're sitting around, you're thinking, hey, I just, I need my break or whatever it is. That ain't going to happen. And the thing, and this is what's cool about our world today, is there's never been a better time to learn. To learn new skills. There's so much opportunity out there. So there's a polarity. While we have these problems in our society and we have this abusive system, and we have, I lean very strongly conservative, and maybe the only thing stronger than that is kind of the more libertarian, kind of like, hey, live and let live. Don't fool around with people's personal life. Keep things as small as possible, because there's corruption and inefficiency everywhere. So if you grow government and you grow these mega corporations that control everything, you're just going to have more inefficiency and more corruption. And so rein it in, keep personal responsibility high. But on the flip side of that, there's a ton of opportunity for people. Mm-hmm. People like you that are look at this show, and congratulations on your awards and everything that you're doing. And who would have thought a few years ago that could be done from Alaska? I mean, it's
awesome. Like 10 years ago, unless you worked for NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox News, you couldn't have a show like this.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me a little bit about what's your thoughts on, when you and I grew up, you got and your people are playing little league sports, you got a ribbon if you were first place, second place, or third place, and that's it. Now everybody gets a participation trophy and a pat on the back just for showing up. Do you think that that's been detrimental to our culture? Everybody wins as opposed to if you ain't first, you last.
I think, I think everything has every coin. There's two sides to every coin. So I understand the idea that, you want to make people feel good and help their self-esteem. Okay. Well, let me just tell you something. Nothing helps your self-esteem more than accomplishing something, than getting something done, than working hard. Right. If I can, people can tell me, oh, you're good, you did this, blah, 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 blah. But if I don't feel good inside because I'm not producing something, and it could just be like something simple, like cleaning my room or cleaning my office or whatever. If I'm productive, I feel good. And so I think we've absolutely, and in reality, life is not easy. There's no such thing as fairness in life. There's a lot of randomness in life. You or I could step out on the street, maybe not you, because just you have more risk of grizzly bear getting
and moose attacks.
I could step out on the street, get run over by a bus, and so there's no guarantees in life. There's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of risk. And we have to accept that not everybody's going to get a participation trophy in the game of life. And what happens, and I'm looking at the big picture, long-term historical cycles and trends. We are in a cycle currently, because this is one of the things we study with TWF and some of the other stuff that we do, is we're in when you look at civilization, the way that civilization peaks and then collapses and then peaks again and then collapses. We're in that state right now where we're very much peaking and rolling over. And one of the classic symptoms of it is softness. When society becomes soft, and it's not just physically soft, but mentally soft, then society collapses. And I'm not talking about collapses like forever or anything like that. It goes through cycles. And, one of the things I always try to do is, just embrace the suck. There's things in my life I don't like doing, or I'm not good at. And that's one of the things, back to your point about the participation trophy thing, part of that is to teach us what we should be focused on and doing, and not put energy into things we're not good at, and to keep trying and failing. And eventually we're going to figure out what works for us.
I like that. One of the quotes that I like, I have no idea who said this, but hard times create strong men create hard times, or good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
Yes.
And I feel like we are somewhere on the downswing because, I look around the room and I don't see a lot of strong men or women leading the cause. And so I'm very thankful that you're still out there doing that. Give me a question to you. Is somewhere along the line, you and your wife created a very successful business. What was the moment in time that you both kind of looked at each other and were like, holy crap, this is working? Like, we've just put in 5 years of 27-hour days, 27-hour day work days, and this is finally working. Like, the business is growing. People's lives are being changed. Talk to me about that moment, and if it was, super important to help you keep at it in this thing called life.
That's such a great question, John. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying about trying and failing. And we had not necessarily failed. We had several successful businesses, but then went through a season where she was really focused on being a mother, and we were raising kids, 5 kids in total, and so she was not speaking anymore, and I was doing different things and working a couple businesses, and there was 2 businesses that I was involved in, and they didn't go anywhere, but I learned some skills. And then we started speaking and training and doing seminars, and I applied those skills to that business, and it just took off and exploded. And I would say that the part about it that makes it worthwhile is when you can focus on seeing other people's success, and you could like we were just talking about Lenny, and how much that's fired me up and inspired me, doing that interview with him last week and hearing his story and hearing what he's done, right? So so definitely back to, you know, when we were getting started, and it's true. I mean, the first couple of years, all we were doing was feeding this business, you know, working crazy hours and nights, no collecting no paychecks or anything like that. We had other income sources, fortunately, but a lot of times businesses are like that. You know, you put a lot of sweat equity into it. And but I would say when that momentum started to kick in, and you see the testimonials and you see the results that people are getting, and you focus, when you see that, when you have a business and you start to see your clients or your customers having success, that's what you focus on. And the more you focus on that, the more tighter you stay with the market. And that gets difficult as a business grows. You can get kind of disconnected from that market. And so it's just fun. It's really fun when you can stay close and tight to it.
How has it been tough to balance? You know, most people have an experience showing up to an event that they're running and there's thousands of people there and you're speaking. Has it been tough to balance? Everybody wants to be your friend, but you can't have 1,000 best friends, and being able to experience, you know, true community with folks that you're actually close with, as opposed to, you know, it's just tough when you have a certain amount of following and everybody wants to be your best friend. How has it been juggling that? I'm just curious if it's been hard or if it's been easy.
Yeah, that is a whole conversation we could have sometime, my friend. That well, and no, seriously, I think people don't realize, if you're a public figure, even if it's in a niche that you can walk down the street and people don't recognize you, but in your niche, it's like a big deal, you know, specifically like you're talking about. We would run events, and yes, thousands of people, and different personalities handle it differently. Some people love it, and some people just do great, you know. Other people don't particularly like the attention, but they do an incredible job at just connecting with people and focusing on the person. And that's my wife. She is incredible at just the way she can really pour her heart into people and focus on what their needs are, and just be so present for them. I struggled with that for years. And it was very difficult for me because I tend to lean more introverted. I like my quiet time. I like to think and just write and just like research and do stuff. And now if I get fired up and like you and I are chit chatting right now and I get my energy going, yeah, it's no problem. But I struggled with the intrusions and trying to keep the balance, and not really knowing, okay, who can I trust? What does this person want from me?
You know, it's tough because I feel like, you know, at least for my friends that are in politics or whatever, everybody seems to always have an angle.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, particularly in that space, that's brutal. Yeah.
So what's you know, for folks the folks that are listening out there who maybe they're struggling to find community, what's some advice you'd give them as they're navigating? Even, you know, they may just have a 9-to-5 job and they're just having a hard time finding friends, you know.
Yeah.
It's just some people, it's just tough for folks.
Yeah, you're right. You know, it's interesting. I have a take on this. You know, a lot of people are looking online for that community and that sense of you know, connection. And of course, we know this has been going on for a long time. I actually think the answer, and you can find some great communities online. You can meet some incredible people in different groups and whatnot. You know, we have one with our 2L Formula members, and it's fantastic to have those and to become part, you know, get plugged into something that's positive, that you can basically have something that's moving you forward. I think people sometimes they get caught in groups or communities where there's no, you know, like you could spend hours on social media and you're talking to strangers and there's where are you going? You know what I mean? If you track the amount of time into it over X amount of days, weeks, months, years, what is that actually doing for your life? Versus there's groups that you can become a part of that you can look back a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, and you go, holy crap, my life is completely different. It's not the same thing anymore. But aside from all of that, I actually think the way forward, not discounting what I just said, but I think the way forward, my friend, is neighbors, is local stuff, getting outside and walking and actually talking to our neighbors more. I think that our world has partly become screwed up in
we're
ways.
we're like this on our phones all day long, like this.
Yeah.
And they don't actually talk to real people.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've traveled over 40 countries, and when you travel and you go to other places, you'd be amazed at how much people are just sitting out at night, sitting on their porches, just talking to each other. They're walking around talking to their neighbors. They're hanging out, and they know each other, and we live in a society today. We live in neighborhoods. We live in cities that we don't even know who's right next door to us.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be a reversion to that in the coming years. I think that that's going to be a place that people are going to find incredible value that they couldn't have imagined. And there's something for the heart, soul, and spirit that does that you can never get in a device in the digital realm. So
I love that. I think that folks, if you're listening, getting back to the basics of just talking and interacting with people and being kind. Oftentimes today, people revert to just being a complete a-hole, and we need to learn the art of kindness again. My mom always said, if somebody's mean to you, just kill them with kindness. And I think that there's something to be said about that generation and just knowing how to be a good person even through hard times. So so who's been a hero to you in your life? I'm sure you've had several, but talk to me about one that sticks out to you and why have they been a hero to you?
So yeah, I know we talked about this last time. My wife, it's hard for me, and I thought about that. I was like, that was kind of God, what kind of answer is that? Not that, wait a second.
You're earning brownie points is what you're doing.
Yeah, totally. You can't go wrong with that. But no, I mean, how could I not? I mean, give me a break. She's like super wife, amazing. To do what she's done. She could have, if she wanted to run that career even further, she really could have done that in a way that is, and she chose family. She chose to be dedicated and a dedicated mother and wife. She's just really overall character, and who she is just really inspiring. And she's absolutely my best friend. We've gone through all kinds of craziness. We've been together now. I think we're coming up on 31 years.
Nice. Congratulations.
We sort of celebrate the time we kind of did things backwards, but that's a big task. We've been married officially for 29 and then we're celebrating our 31st together. So that's no joke, and especially for us, both of us came from pretty dysfunctional upbringing. So to have to figure out the things we figured out and survive each other is no joke. So
that's awesome. So let's say we have somebody listening here. We're going to have somebody listening that's maybe they're in the middle of starting a business. Maybe they're on the front end, they're in college, and they're thinking to themselves, they're 2 years into college and thinking, I'm not learning anything here. I want to just go start to do what I want to do in life. What kind of advice would you give somebody who's on the cusp of potentially wanting to start a business?
You can't go wrong learning sales. And, for some personality types, it's like, oh my God, no. But then if that's the case, you all the more why go through a season in your life where you learn sales, learn how to work with people, and you can do it through on-the-job training. I always had this thought, because I didn't go to college or anything like that. I was lucky to escape high school where I grew up. I was exactly that person that you just described. I was like, what am I going to go to college for? In my case, it was like, okay, you got to learn to sell. So you find either a home-based business or some opportunity, or if the best setup is if you can work with somebody and mentor under somebody. And I used to have this thought. I said, you know what? I'm going to make up in work ethic what I lack in skill. And, so you just focus on working hard and showing up early and yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, be polite, learn good manners, everything you just said, be kind, put out effort. And people say, well, okay, yeah, then you're just sort of like looking to be taken advantage of. Well, yes, that will happen. And guess what? That's life. You know what I mean? There's no point. There's no life. Life is not work like, oh yeah, you're never going to be taken advantage of, robbed from, stolen from, bad things are going to happen. No, since our ancestors, since the beginning of time, that's how life has been. It's always been that way. There's randomness. There are things we can't control. There's uncertainty. There's risks, right? It's never not been that way. And, if we try to eliminate that completely, we end up doing the exact opposite. We end up creating more risk. And that's where we're at in society now. So, it's just, yeah. And you learn, you make mistakes. Maybe you work with a bad person that takes advantage of you. You're going to learn from that. And then, and so you're going to be picking up skills along the way. And what I always tell people is focus on high value skill sets. And so, the basics are learning to sell, working with people. Project management is huge. Finance, if you could pick up some finance skill sets, product development, marketing, trading, if you're into the markets. But there's just so much opportunity. Creative, doing content development, things like what you're doing and what I'm doing. And so, yeah, there's just a ton of opportunity out there. And good grief, what can't you learn on YouTube nowadays?
Yeah, my son and I, he wanted to start a business 3 years ago when he was 8.5, and his sister had a business, still has a business, and has been successful, and so he wanted to write a book. So I took him through a year process. Now, a year process is for a 9-year-old is a long time. It seems like eternity. Yeah. And writing a book and hiring somebody to do the illustrations and hiring an editor and all these things. And man, a year later, he wrote a book, had it published, and became a #1 seller on Amazon at age 10. Oh my
gosh.
And he's in the middle of starting a second business. And I think that oftentimes people don't succeed because they don't even try. They're too scared. They're fearful. And one of the things I always tell people, like, I got my son into, we haven't done this yet, but he's very excited to do this, flipping shoes on eBay. Something super simple, like anybody can do. Everybody, except for Alaska, because we only have one in Anchorage, has these, Ross Dress for Less and Burlington Coat Factories and these kind of like second tier stores that get brand new goods for super cheap. I mean, anybody could walk into any of these stores and literally buy Nikes for $20 and sell them for $40 on eBay all day long. I mean, it's stuff that low hanging fruit that literally anybody can do. There's always opportunity to make money. I tell people.
You're absolutely right.
So what's next for you? You and your wife have figured out a roadmap and a formula on how to have a very successful business that empowers people to achieve their goals. And now you've written this book. Do you see this as the kind of that next thing? You're going to have speaking engagements on the book, and my guess is you probably already have in groups around helping people and be empowered and better their lives. How could somebody get involved if they're listening and they're like, oh, I want to figure out what the hell Hans is doing because it sounds amazing. How can somebody get more information and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely True Wealth Formula has been sort of my focus for some time, and it still is. I'm very passionate about it. I think in part because to me, true wealth is so much more than just the monetary side of it. So it does cover and it really does focus on the whole person, which is critical. Character. What good is all the riches of the world if we don't have the character to manage them properly and to treat people with kindness, and including ourselves, but that's definitely where my focus is at, is working with people and helping them get the money side dialed down, because there's no dialed in. I mean, because if you can apply a mathematical formula to your personal finance, then all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. And that was my frustration, because there's some great books and great teachings out there. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, but now what do you do? And so True Wealth Formula, what it does is it really focuses on that. It deals with the budgeting side, it deals with the human psychology side, it deals with getting those targets down to exact numbers, the debt payoff, we were talking about that earlier, accelerating that debt payoff, and then exactly how to convert that earned income into unearned, or the money I work for, and get the money working for me instead of me working for my money all the time. Because people just get caught in that trap. And so they can basically find out. So we have the book's available at Amazon.com. It's the only place that I sell it. There's reviews on there. It's 5-star rated. People can read the reviews and see what people have said. They can also go to TrueWealthFormula.com, and they can essentially get some information there, and Lenny's video will be up, and so they can watch that. And then we have a monthly subscription for members, and it's $29 a month, and that's our implementation program, where we take people step by step, step 1, step 2, step 3. And then we have an app that we've developed that I've invested too much money into, that basically because again, I said, okay, well, if this is really true, if it's mathematical, we should be able to break this down into an algorithm, and we should be able to build an app around this. And now the individual can plug their numbers in. And then what's so exciting about this, John, is that once you know the formulas, you know where the levers are. So you can move this lever and you see what happens over here. Move this lever. Oh, what happens here? And it's just really empowering. And I guess for me, I'm just super passionate about this because of my upbringing, to be honest, and just struggling as a young father and trying to figure life out and the world out. And also making money mistakes along the way. I talk about my biggest mistakes and failures and stupid, dumb. I don't want to cuss on your program, but so it's just, yeah, skip all the mistakes and the shortcuts, and go straight to what works, and have fun. But yeah, it's hard for me to get away from this message. There's other things I'm passionate about, but this is the thing I see people really struggling with. And we have an awesome system. It's fun, and a great group of people with it. So this is
Nice.
where I'm at for a while.
So for folks that are listening, and you want to read this book, it's True Wealth Formula: How to Master Money, Live Free, and Build a Legacy. If you go to Amazon, you could check it out. But for a special lucky guest, we're going to be giving away a book, hopefully signed by Hans, and toted off to wherever you live. So if you want to enter to win that, I'll put the ways on how to do that in the description of the podcast. But all you have to do is like, comment, share, or tag a friend in this Facebook post that will be up, and you'll enter to win. You could do all 4, and that's 4 entries. And then also, if you email me, john@mustreadalaska.com, JOHN@mustreadalaska.com, I will send a free copy of this book. I'll buy it myself to 10 folks. If you email me your address and your name, I will send you a book to the first 10 people that email me. So, Hans, before we head off here, do you got any last minute things or observations you'd like to talk about?
You know what? I just, first of all, I keep, every time I think about your name, I think, dude, is your name really John Quick? How did you get that name?
I thank my dad for that.
Yeah, boy. And when the John Wick movies came out, you're pulling, yes.
Yeah, John Wick. So when people can say John Wick, I just kind of let it happen. I'm like, if I was John Wick, that would be epic. So just,
totally. But anyway, no, I just think what you're doing is awesome. Getting the word out. Alaska is an amazing place. I think I told you last time my wife and I were up there a couple of years ago, up in the is it Prince William Sound. We took a rail from. We flew into Anchorage. We jumped on a train down to Whittier. I mean, it was so gorgeous. I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely blown away. Because there was flowers everywhere. I was like, this place looks like Hawaii. What's going on here? And it was just gorgeous. We had an incredible time. Saw the glacier, saw bears and salmon, and it was just super cool. But more importantly, doing what you're doing, getting the message out. I could tell that you've got a bigger message. You're using Alaska, which is some great bait, but you're doing an important work. So, my message to everybody is just find something you're passionate about ultimately, but don't think that that's where you're going to start. You know what I mean? Learn how to work hard, learn good work ethics, learn good character, learn some of these other skill sets that we talked about, learn how to get your finances dialed down and buttoned. You get that done early, man, the world is yours, and then through time, if you don't give up, just don't give up. You're going to find something that you're just awesome at, that nobody can do as good as you can do, or at least in the way that you do it. And there's a hurting world out there, and it needs your voice. It needs who you are. And, and it doesn't matter. Big is not the thing. It's just quality. Sometimes less is more, and quality is where it's at. And we don't need to live in a world that judges each other by the size of things, but really just by character. And I think that's the world that a lot of people want. I know it's a world that many famous people talked about. And so I hope that's the world that I get to see more of for my kids and grandkids. And we'll see how we go. We each got to do the best we can with what we got. So
nice. Well, thank you so much, Hans, for joining us. And for folks listening, I will put a link in the description so you can go check out everything Hans is doing. And if you just caught maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes, I want to encourage you to go back and listen to the whole thing. It will inspire you to get off your keister and potentially do something about a situation you don't like. Everybody has hopes and dreams, and not everybody's hopes and dreams are being actively lived in their own life. So Hans can inspire you to go live those dreams that you had maybe as a kid or maybe in college. There's no better time than now. It's never too late. So thank everybody for listening, watching, and reading Must Read Alaska. Tomorrow we have 2 guests, special guests, Mark Lindquist, who's a New York Times bestseller, 4 books. He's going to be on tomorrow. He was in the Brat Pack. That we've all heard of the Brat Pack of the movie industry. Mark was in the Brat Pack of the author industry. He authored his first New York Times bestseller while he was in college in the early 90s. And he is a bit of a legend, has a cult following in the book world. And he just does that on the side. He's a full-time prosecutor for his day job. So that'll be a very interesting episode. And then we have a candidate for Anchorage Assembly, Spencer Moore, on as well. So you won't want to miss out. Until next time, I'm John Quick from somewhere in Alaska. Thanks so much.